Okay, what's up, guys? So this week I'm not gonna be there in class. I'm homesick. I've got COVID. So what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be making videos. That the sub is gonna be showing you. I'm also gonna be at my computer during class time. So if you guys have questions, I want you to email me your questions, and I will respond to them. Hopefully, almost immediately, because even though I'm not physically there, I still want to be there for you guys. Okay, so last time I felt like there was still a little bit of confusion with solving one-step equations, and I wanted to address that before we got into something new. So, I kind of wanted to think about like what an equation is a little bit here. So I'm making this video from home. I've got my laptop. I don't have a stylus. I have to use my finger. So if it doesn't look that neat, it's because I've got a fat finger. Okay? Alright, so let's look at an equation. If I've got 3 plus 5, and that's equal to 8. Okay? 3 plus 5 is always going to be equal to 8. I have to remember that whatever's on the left side of my equal sign always has to equal what's on the right side of my equal sign. So let's say, for fun, because math is fun, I want to move this 5 to the right side. So if I want to do that, I subtract 5 from both sides. Those cancel out. So I've got 3 is equal to 8 minus 5. Okay? So 3 is always going to be the same thing as 8 minus 5. So when I do want something to one side, I do it to the other, it's still true. Okay, and that's one very important thing to remember about algebra. If we're doing something to one side of the equation, we have to do it to the other, because we've got to make sure that we got to maintain our rule of equality. So what's on the left has to always be equal to what's on the right. So if I did 3 plus 5 equals 8, and I just subtracted 5 from this side, and I write, oh, well, 3 is equal to 8, that's never true. That's never true. So that doesn't work, so we can't do that. So, now if I've got 3 plus 5 is equal to 8, but let's say I don't know that this 5 is actually 5. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this. So I've got 3 plus, and if I don't know what a number is in mathematics, I represent it using a variable. So I don't know what that x is. Or I don't know that x is 5, so I'm going to rewrite it this way. Now, I could look at this and go, well, 3 plus a number is equal to 8. Well, that's 5. Like, I can just tell you that that is 5. That's great that you can tell me that that's 5, but I want you to show me using algebra that x is equal to 5. So the way we do that is we perform, so this is called a single-step equation, okay? So in order to do that, we perform the inverse operation to one side to move numbers around. So I want to move this 3 over to here so that I have this x all by itself. Now remember, just like before, when I knew that the x was actually equal to 5, if I did something to the left side, I had to do it to the right. So if I subtract 3 from here, I have to subtract 3 from this side as well. Because if I don't, then I won't maintain my rule of equality. Okay? So if I do that, those cancel out, and I'm left with x. And on the right, I have 8 minus 3, and we know that 8 minus 3 is actually equal to 5. So, that's how we show, using algebra, that x is actually equal to 5. Okay? So, let's do a couple more examples. Let's say I have x minus 4 is equal to negative 3. Okay? Now I could look at this and trying to decide, well, what number minus 4 is equal to negative 3, and try and do it in my head, and that's great and all, but as we start to put more and more steps into our algebra, it's going to be harder to do it in our head. So we've got to start to learn how to master these like kind of these algebraic steps to get our variable by itself. So in order to get the x by itself, I have to do something with this -4 here, and I want to move it to this side. So to do that, I can add 4 to both sides, because right here 4 is being subtracted. That's why it's negative. And the opposite of subtraction is addition. So I can add 4 to both sides. If I do that, these cancel. And I'm left with x on the left. And then -3 plus 4. And I'll do this. So -3 plus 4 is equal to 1. Okay, so I used algebra to prove what my x is. Okay, now let's do one that looks a little bit different. So now I've got 2 times x is equal to -3. Nope, not that. Let's do this. 2 times x is equal to -6. Okay? So, I want to figure out what value my x is. Okay? So, in order to figure this out, I have to get that x all by itself. And I could do the same thing with what I did before, where if I've got 2 times -3 is equal to -6, okay? Because I could do this in my head to try to figure out what x is, and I could say, oh, well, look, it's just -3, because I know that 2 times -3 is equal to -6. Well, that's great, but I want you to show me that it's equal to -3 using algebra. Okay? So the way I can do that is I've got my, use a different color. Right here, my 2 is being multiplied by my x. Okay, because you notice there wasn't anything in between the 2 and the x. When there's nothing in between there, that means they're being multiplied. Okay, so if they're being multiplied together, and I want to perform the inverse operation of multiplication to undo that, the opposite of multiplication is division. So I want to find a number that I can divide this 2 by so that I just get 1. So if you think about that, what number divided by 2 is equal to 1? Well, that's just 2. Because 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1. And whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other, so those cancel out. And I'm left with x is equal to -6 divided by 2 is -3. Okay? Alright, let's try another one. This one seems to scare people. Okay. So I've got -x equals -2. I want to figure out what value for x is equal to -2. And you could say, well, isn't it just -2? But if we look at my -x, what number is always in front of an x even though we don't write it? That number is 1. So no, I've always got a -1, or I've always got a 1 in front of my x. So in this case, I've got a -1 in front of my x. And -1 is being multiplied by x. And I want to get the x all by itself. So what operation can I perform that gets rid of that -1? Well, if it's being multiplied, that means division. So, -1 divided by what number is equal to just 1? Well, that would be -1, because -1 divided by -1 is just 1. Whatever I divide one side by, I have to do it to the other. So that means -1 divided by -1 is just 1. So I'm left with x is equal to, and then -2 divided by -1, a negative divided by negative is a positive. So I just get 2. Okay, one more kind. So, if I've got my variable, and it's being divided by a number, and I want to figure out what this, if I have this equation, I want to figure out what x is. Okay, so x is being divided by a number, and I want to get rid of this negative 2. I want to move it over to here, okay? And I can't add or subtract 2 from both sides because my 2, or my x, is being divided by 2. So like the previous problems, our x was being multiplied by a number, and in order to undo it, we divided. Well, in this case, our x, or our variable, is being divided by a number, so to undo that, we have to multiply. So I want to find a number that I can multiply 2 by, so that reduces to 1, okay? So I'm going to multiply both sides by a number, and I want to figure out what number would reduce that to 2. And that's actually going to be 2. Because if I do that, remember I've always got, that's always over 1. So when I divide fractions, I just multiply across. So I'd have 2 times x is all over 2, which is equal to 6. Okay, and then what happens to those 2's? They reduce to 1, and I'm left with x is equal to 6. Okay, let's try another one. So if I've got, this is probably going to throw you off a little bit. If I got 1/3 x is equal to 4. Okay, this one's written a little bit different, but I did it on purpose because I want you guys to see that 1/3 x is the exact same thing as x all over 3. Okay, so what that's saying is that my variable here, my x, is being divided by that 3, or it's being multiplied by 1/3, which is the same thing as being divided by 3. So I want to multiply, or since my variable is being divided by a number, and I want to get the variable by itself, I want to perform the inverse operation to get the variable by itself. If it's being divided by a number, I need to multiply by a number. So I'm going to multiply both sides by something, and I want to get rid of this 3 right here. So the number I'm going to multiply both sides by is 3. Because if I do that, I get 3x all over 3 is equal to 12. And then what happens to those 3's? Oh, well, they reduce to 1, and I'm left with x is equal to 12. Okay, so what I want you guys to do now is I want you to take a few minutes, and I want you to hop on, go into Canvas, and go to the assignment 0.5, and I want you to work on those, okay? And if you get stuck, I want you to email me. Email me and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Type out the equation, say I'm stuck. I'm here to help, okay? So let's take the next few minutes and do that. Also, make sure you're washing your hands. Not getting people sick.